got State Representative Dan Sullivan with us. Here he is. Dan, how are you?
Good morning, Paul. I tell you what, Friday, I can't believe it's already here.
It is. It is. And, this weekend is one of the few weekends people have left if they're going to buy people Christmas presents. So.
Yeah, well, except for some of us guys who wait until like the 23rd,
the very
or 24th.
last minute. Well, you're running a campaign as well, so I'm sure you got a lot going on. How's the campaign going?
You're going great. I mean, Paul, one of the things I think a lot of your listeners have probably seen some of the videos that I do, and did a video yesterday, a short one about Arkansas and getting rid of feral hogs. So I'm down in Little Rock. I'm up here. Today we'll be going to St. Bernard's Village with the Veteran Support Group as they visit with our veterans and have a little Christmas gift for them. I've got a meeting later on with a young constituent that I met, African-American constituent who I met at the Chamber of Commerce dinner the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to meet with him and sit down and have coffee and talk. I'm really interested in what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear what you think and hear what's important to you, and then talk to them about conservative ideas. After that, I've got another meeting with some folks in the afternoon over at Black Iron Shooting Range.
All right.
We're going to go over there with Aaron, and then tonight we'll be at the Walnut Street Christmas party. And all the while, waiting for a call from a business owner that is getting kind of hassled by DHS over some regs. And when they call me, I'm going to try to run out there and meet with DHS and meet with our constituent in the business to try to resolve that. And that happens about every day.
Yeah, I know.
But I really enjoy it. It's helping people. This is why you run. Many people think running for office means you just drive the Little Rock and vote on things. A big part of it is helping constituents who have problems.
Yeah.
It's meeting with them and listening to them and finding out what's important to them. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the big differences between John Cooper and myself, that I'm out there listening to people, hearing what they have to say versus me sitting down telling you what you think.
Yeah.
One of us is elected and represents the people to Little Rock. Another one is elected and represents Little Rock back to the people.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell them what to do.
That's exactly
Big
what's
difference.
gone on. That's exactly what's gone on, and you can definitely tell that. And Senator Cooper is running a campaign on the issues that are important to Republicans, but there's one issue. There's one problem with that. He didn't vote the way he's claiming and what he supports. We talked about this the other day. We've got this video here, You Matter to Me, and he talks about how gun rights matter to me, lower taxes matter to me, and yet he voted against, the Stand Your Ground bill, for one.
Yeah, voted against it, was the only Republican voting against it, and killed the bill that impacted all Arkansans. So when you run an ad like that and say, well, I'm for gun rights, well, tell us what it is you're for, because you certainly didn't stand strong. And again, what the people the local people elected John to go down there and represent them in Little Rock and tell Little Rock what they want. Instead, John's going to come back and tell the people what he wants, and that was not gun control. The same thing with taxes.
Right.
The people elected John, and John campaigned hard, collected a lot of money, and campaigned hard for people. When the people say, John, go to tell Little Rock that we don't want our taxes raised. We want lower taxes, smaller government. And John, of course, votes the other way. And now he's out holding town halls telling people, I got to tell you why you're wrong and why I went down there and changed my mind.
Yeah, no, you're right. He has these town halls. I had one photo, though, where nobody showed up to it, which I thought was interesting.
Well, one did.
One did?
Yes.
Some of the comments on this post where he says he's for lower taxes when he voted for all the tax increases. This guy, somebody says he will say anything to get elected. This guy's the biggest right on the Republican Party. Anyway, and that's still up there. I would have assumed he would have deleted those by now, but we covered that yesterday. I want to ask you about your question. The Jonesboro Sun asked you yesterday about President Trump and impeachment, and you said what?
Yeah, they actually didn't print it all because there's no evidence, no credible firsthand evidence that raises to the level of impeachment for crimes and misdemeanors. this is a waste of time. It's a waste of taxpayer money. And Congress should be getting back to the business of the people. You know, when John says, I refuse to comment, I have a campaign to run.
Yeah, in that same article, he didn't comment.
Yeah, well, he refused to comment. He just didn't not have a comment.
Yeah.
He refused, the paper says. And this affects Arkansans. You know, we have a huge trade deal on the table that affects our farmers and all Arkansans. And so when any of us are afraid to stand up or unwilling to stand up for our president and our party and Arkansans, you know, we're not being a leader, and people elected us to be leaders. So when people ask me how I voted on the recent tax increase in Jonesboro with Team Jonesboro, I opposed it. And I had a lot of questions and talk with people, but I'm very willing to share with people what I think. That's what people expect of a leader. That's what people expect of one who calls himself a conservative, that we will step up and we'll answer those type of questions. You know, it's very easy for our legislator when the tough questions come up, whether it's in Little Rock or here, for us to find an answer or sit on the sideline and put our finger up in the air and see which way the wind's blowing.
Yep.
And then you just say, well, you know, whatever it is that is expedient that makes you look good and keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, again, I think that's one of the major differences between John and myself. When people ask me a question, I'm going to answer honestly. And if we disagree, then let's sit down and talk about it. And let's see, maybe you can inform me.
You know, I just got to say, that's true. I mean, at the one town hall that we have audio of, he wouldn't take certain questions.
Right.
He said, well, I'm not going to answer that question. I'll only answer questions, and it's because he did answer the one question on, you know, voting against the bill that would have allowed students to study the Bible in school as an elective, only as an elective. He did explain about why.
Well, you know, in the 2017 session, we had the bill to allow "In God We Trust." John sat on the sideline on that, which, as you know, is a no vote. When you vote present or you don't vote, that's a no. So John, instead of taking a strong position and saying, look, I oppose this, or I don't like it, or I have questions about it, he just sat on the sideline. This is a big deal. Putting "In God We Trust" back in our schools, back in our colleges, is a big deal. And John sat on the sideline there, and just like in this instance where he refused to comment on the president, John refused to vote on "In God We Trust."
This is what the Jonesboro Sun said when they asked Senator Cooper about what he thinks about impeachment, which is, I think, something that local politicians would want to tell their constituents.
Conservative.
Yeah,
Republicans.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. State Senator John Cooper, who's running for re-election, refused to comment on the issue except to state that he did not think the impeachment inquiry would have an impact on the 2020 presidential campaign. Quote, I'm in a campaign, and I don't want to comment on national politics. So back when John Cooper claimed to be a conservative and also would come on this show, I would always ask about national issues for every local candidate that came here. We would talk local, but then I'd be like, I think it's important to know. I said this phrase to everybody. I think it's important for the audience to know how our local politicians feel about national issues.
Yeah.
And he would always expound on it, and it always pretty much fell in line with what you would assume a Republican would think.
Matter of fact, on the healthcare issue, which was a national issue,
Yeah.
he was very willing to say, I oppose Obamacare.
Yeah.
And
he changed his
he was
mind
willing
on
to
that
comment on the national scene then, and that was an election because I was running against him.
Yes.
And he was very willing to say, I will oppose Obamacare in Arkansas. And all of a sudden now he has changed his mind. Again, politicians, if they have a chance, will take the path of least resistance. And if the people don't stand up and the people don't call them into account, then many politicians will continue down that same path. And it's not representing the people to Little Rock, it's representing Little Rock back to the people.
We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Got this poll recently. It's been in the news. Governor Asa Hutchinson been out there talking about an internal survey. According to the governor's internal survey or poll, 62% of the 800 Arkansans polled support or lean towards supporting a 0.5% sales tax for highways and roads. The governor's using this to say the people support voting for issue 1 coming up in 2020. What do you think about this whole thing we've got to look forward to?
First of all, I don't support the half-cent sales tax, and primarily because when it was passed in 2012, the Arkansas legislature, we gave our word. In 2022, in 10 years, it ends. Kind of like, what was the healthcare statement someone made?
If you like your healthcare plan,
if you like your healthcare, you can keep it.
Right.
Or this, we're getting rid of these things. The legislature gave our promise, and if there's one thing that people of Arkansas are concerned about, it's people who keep their word. People, when I tell you this is what I'm going to do, that's what we do. And I'm really committed, even though I wasn't there in 2012, that's what we as a legislature promised. We should have allowed that tax to expire. Now, if we want to pass a new tax, have at it. So the fact that we're promoting this as continuing a tax is a partial truth. The real truth is we gave our word that tax would end. I'm going to keep the word of the Arkansas legislature. That's what Arkansans expect. Secondly, it would have taken a higher threshold than to pass a new tax, which is why we're doing it. The fact that people,
Ooh, that's an esoteric point, but for people that don't understand, they'd have to get 3/4, I believe, to change the sales tax rate. Yeah, you have to get 75% instead of a simple majority.
Yeah, changes the threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what our Constitution calls for.
Right.
And what the people expect us to do is not bypass or find ways around, but to do what we promise we're going to do. Paul, in my election with John, I think integrity and keeping our word is the most important thing what voters look for in us, is that we're going to be who we say we are. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. And in 2012, we said it would end. Secondly, a poll, from what I've read about this, the tax, it's either we pass the tax or our roads are terrible. It's a binary choice. That's just not true. Same thing we were presented with in the local sales tax. You either pass the tax or things are going to collapse. It's just not true. There are other ways of getting our money and other ways of shifting the tax burden. Julie Mayberry's bill was out there. There are lots of options. So I wasn't polled, so I don't know what the poll questions are. But if it were polled that you have two choices, we either pass the tax or your roads will deteriorate, that's just not true. The second part is we cannot bind a legislature in the future. So we could come back, the legislature could come back, if this tax passes, the legislature can come back and just pass more taxes for roads. There's a lot of options out there. This doesn't take effect until 2022, I think.
Yep.
So, there are multiple opportunities for the legislature to come back in regular sessions, in fiscal sessions, and make the changes that we need. Of course, I supported Julie Mayberry's bill, which would have shifted our tax to more general revenue. I think the lieutenant...
There wouldn't have been a tax increase.
Right.
We would have funded roads with her plan without a tax increase.
Yeah, and I think the lieutenant governor, I think Tim Griffin, has come out several times and said it's not a binary choice, that there are other options.
Yes.
And often the voters are not told what those options are. They're giving you pass the tax or, golly, our roads are going to fall apart.
They give you a choice architecture, and,
Yes.
and they don't want you to know anything else. Oh, by the way, I think I thought of the reason why they said that the tax would sunset in 2022 all the way back in 2012. If you'll remember, in 2012, the Mayan calendar said that we weren't even going to be here. So they're like, well, we're not going to even make it to 2022. It doesn't matter. Can I get your comment on May 28th of this year, the Craighead County Republican Committee passed a resolution affirming the Republican Party of Arkansas platform.
Right.
Your opponent, John Cooper, said that he opposed the resolution that did pass with two-thirds
majority.
But he compared it to the Soviet Empire. He said that this is like a political party in the Soviet Empire.
And of course, if you read his comments, he says that there's some kind of an oath there, or he references our founding principles and such. that we're not to take oaths, we're not to demand loyalty. That's not what the document said.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. The document just said, here's our platform. I forget the exact word.
We affirm it, and
Affirm.
we want to encourage the senators
Right.
and state representatives to vote the platform.
Yeah. So it was no oath. It was no, you're not signing a document, a pledge of any kind. And it says in the document it's non-binding.
Yeah.
Because all of us take votes that do not adhere maybe in a very strict sense to what the platform says. We all do that. We all have things we vote about. Maybe it's even gun legislation.
Well, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and there are nuances in bills
Right.
too.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, you can say that just was not a good bill, but one ought to be able to sit down and talk to people. When John tried to close the Lake City Courthouse, he ran that bill through. He failed. He didn't call the mayors. He didn't go over to Lake City and talk to the people.
Really?
Yeah, he just ran the bill. As a matter of fact, I wanted to testify. And as I heard he was running the bill in committee, I ran down there as the vote was over and they were coming out. And, I think John is still, to my knowledge, not committed to what he will do with the Lake City Courthouse. I know that there are some who still want to close that down. And I think the voters in Lake City need to really consider that when they go to the polls, because John never reached out to them.
Yeah.
Ran it through quietly. When it came to the House, I called the mayors. I called the people on both sides.
Yeah.
So we had testimony in the House for and against. John took a different path. John only snuck it through when nobody was looking and ran it through the Senate. And again, that's just the difference in the way we approach problem solving. The people elect us to problem solve.
Well, and to be clear, the reason I think John did that was because there were people in Jonesboro who wanted the courthouse closed in Lake City, and so John, very much like he kind of represents Little Rock to us instead of representing us to Little Rock. He was kind of doing the same thing, but in a smaller scale. You know?
I get it, but process is important.
Oh, I agree. Be transparent about it. If it's a good idea, debate it.
Well, just like John's voted for. I think there were six Democrat senators who had more conservative voting records than John. Well, just embrace it. Say, look, this is who I am. I'm a tax person. I like raising your taxes. I mentioned just a second ago that people elect us to solve problems. Well, when your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, and you're just going to whack it. And John's only solution to every problem is raise taxes. That's what it appears. And there are other solutions, as we talked about a while ago. There are other ways to go about problem solving than just raising people's taxes. That's why they elect us.
We are way over. We're out of time. Well, this has been a great conversation.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, Paul.
I really appreciate it. State Representative Dan Sullivan, good luck in all your campaign
Thank
stops. You. All right. Where can people go if they want to help you
Sullivan for Arkansas.
Okay, is that number
website?
4? Or?
No, that's a FOR.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sullivan for Arkansas.
And we could use their help, by the way.
SullivanforArkansas.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, SullivanforArkansas.com.